Welcome to Stortebecker's Cove. Today we are building a pirate build for our Hanseatic dreamland, but slow. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. We are going to approach this video step by step. I'm going to tell you which steps I did take to achieve what I've done, which took me over 15 hours in total or even more, but I'll talk you through. I'll give you exactly the explanation and the inspiration that you need to do something like this if you want to. But before we start into it, here's as always the little note from the sponsor of the channel, Instant Gaming. If you are willing to get a game, DLC, or you just need some in-game currency to be prepared for getting a game, you can get this at Instant Gaming for a great value. They always have very cool discounts. At the moment, the Sims DLC is at a very good value if you want to grab that one, but also all your favorite DLCs from all your favorite games will be there too. You help me directly going via my link in the description or the top right one. But now let's get back into the video, because we are starting our first chapter with planning or blocking. I called that blocking because it describes a little bit better what we're doing to achieve the result. So first things first, have a look at the map. This is how our wonderful Hanseatic dreamland looks from above. However, there is a difference in putting these things just randomly or thinking about where we put this. Now, as I wanted to make sure that this is a build realistically part of the harbor, we needed to go back a little bit in time. And so realistically, this would have been in the very old part of the harbor. And normally the harbor expands into a certain direction, which would be here the left-hand side. And now the old part would be more to the right-hand side. So the perfect spot, as you can tell, where we are flying in. And as you can see now, back into the time lapse, we have quite a lot of blocking to do. So what I did first of all is I gathered a couple of materials, and what I do starting, I actually do this mostly all of the times, but I do cut this out or don't even record that until I'm happy, and once I'm happy I do start building. Now, what does blocking mean? I take very simple shapes and very big pieces to first of all create the environment with like blocks. And well, it depends on how I'm doing it. This time around I have been a little bit too detailed already during the blocking, because I had already a pretty good idea of what I wanted to do, because I had some very nice inspiration. I'm going to talk about the inspiration in a bit. I'll show you some images. It wasn't the easiest, but more about the story in a bit. Now, what I meant with the blocking is I create, as I said, an area that first of all consists only of a couple of different height blocks. So the first good thing is you can check out the proportions, if you're too big or too small or whatever, if it's going to be too dense or if it's going to be too loose or if it's going to be too big or too small. So these kind of things you can check without actually putting too much time and effort into making all the details. So what I was doing is I was putting the blocks down. Now, as a little hint for you, if you are willing to do this as well, make sure to be not as stupid as I am over here and use different materials. You can use the same. Just grab yourself some, I don't know, plaster walls or whatnot, put them quickly into different colors to see them separated from each other. That's all you need to do. I already wanted to try out a couple of materials here because of so many new pieces from the various new sets we have. It's not like, that this is a set I don't know, but over time I forgot how great some of the pieces in the pirate set and in the fantasy set were. And funny enough, they also work very well together. We are using a lot of different pieces from those two new sets, and I must admit that this build overall wouldn't have been possible in the base game in that way. I have seen Yonti from Geekism. He's done a bit of a pirate area before with the actual in-game, or like, I shouldn't say in-game because everything is in-game now, but with the base game vanilla themes, which I think he did a pretty damn good job in that. But it makes the whole thing a bit more easy to build with these pieces, and also because of Frontier brought these over with a great way of putting these textures in, and not sure if they improved them or just took the original and scaled them up. I don't even know, but they look good. That's all it counts. And yeah, so as I said, if you do that, just take yourself the time to not the time to use all these different types of materials. You can do later, but I was willing to put this extra time in to already have an idea if the different materials I've chosen work together well. Because, and this is where we quickly need to talk about the story a little bit. because the story is a big part of today's episode. So while we are still doing the blocking in the background, you can see that I'm adding some details already. And this is really based on the story I was going for. I didn't want to create something very obvious, as you can see on screen right now, the typical kind of pirate coves in the Caribbean. Like, this is, the whole set screams doing that, but I didn't want to. I wanted to do something more unique for this project. You know, in order to make a pirate cove, kind of a classic one, I would have needed to do another big hall, you know, and then build kind of a Caribbean thing in there, or make like a fake corner in the harbor that you would stylize to that. I just didn't want to do that. What I wanted to do instead is to kind of create an area which could be a restored remainder of the very old, like 14th, 15th, 16th century kind of thing, where the Hamburg harbor has been created. And I, you know, as I said earlier, I looked for a lot of inspiration online. I didn't find that many pictures. There was kind of a cool diorama from some of the museums, I don't know. So that one helped quite a bit, and I have some different perspectives of that, and that like was a bit of the inspiration I went for. But I gotta admit that it wasn't the easiest way of doing this. So what I took instead as the main centerpiece is one of the buildings that is going to be super closely built after one of the most prominent ones in the classic Hamburg Speicherstadt, where you can go on a boats tour. And that's like, I used to work in Hamburg, at least occasionally, because in my old agency they also had like an office in Hamburg, and once I switched into strategy, I've been quite often in Hamburg, and I just loved walking over there. So I've been coming past this building quite a lot, and that's also very close to where the miniature Wonderland is. So in case you got interested, but I have, you know, I did show you hopefully already the picture on screen. To give you guys that a bit of inspiration here, where I got this from. So once I was happy with that, the story that this was the remainder of the harbor, this was also mainly the reason why we found the location that it has right now. I also started putting certain things down and started to decide what could have been partly the old part of the harbor, which pieces would have been restored. I mean, apparently the whole thing would have been restored. But for example, this tower over here, which is going to be turned into a crane, definitely is something that is still there and used to be there. And also this kind of wooden building to the left hand side with the frontal overhang definitely is a building that used to be there. So very proud of that. And once this was done, we go into the next chapter. This is exactly the moment where we are adding the defining details. Funny word though, I have no idea if that really exists, but hear me out. This is not the detailing. We'll get to the detailing actually in a couple minutes, but the defining details for me personally are also the pieces that make the whole look. Now, if you do detailing, you can spend a lot of time in one corner of your area, but the defining detailing is usually that what I've been doing after I've been blocking with generic pieces. Only this time around I didn't use generic pieces, so you can see me just filling in the gaps in all these buildings because I was relatively happy with those buildings. Now, like as I said, normally these buildings would be just white grayish blocks, and then I go in this phase to bring in the material I want to use. Some of the like details, the clutter around I want to do, I lay the final pathing so that this is all done. I put down some of the facilities. That is also very important as well, but we'll get to that in a minute. So this is exactly what the defining details mean. I personally always like this step a lot because this gives the whole area the character. And in this specific step, it is a bit of a mixture between what used to be here as like part of the harbor and also what could theoretically still be there. Speaking of what, the next little part, I should say, is putting in the facilities. And I mean, it shouldn't come as a surprise that you need certain things here to make people walk here. So we do have a restaurant on the plaza. We do have a bit of a shop to the right hand side. We will have a souvenir shop in that main building, which isn't done in this episode. It's just, it took already way too many hours. And I went, not too surprisingly, for a swinging ship over here. The usually classic pirate ship, but it's been de-themed in this game, which I am a big fan of. So we can theme that ourselves if we want want to. Not sure if I'm going to do this in the next episode. The next episode is going to be something different. I'll get to that at the end of the episode. So if you're curious, you should definitely stick with me. But there's really not that much more to say about the facilities. This is just for me the part where I put in the main kind of guest drawing pieces and facilities, tools, I don't know, making sure that we have it. And this time around, it's not even a coaster or a track ride or whatever. It is a normal flat ride. I think we need this every now and then. Which brings me to chapter 5. I call that puzzling, which usually should be called detailing or finishing touches. But hey, this one is going to take up 2/3 of the entire building phase. That is not even detailing anymore. This is already the full build, and I call that puzzling because I'm working around this entire area that's already set. Now, I think it's important to speak about that. Usually I don't do this that often, but you guys actually asked for this quite a lot. So here is me really talking about what I'm doing during these projects, what I'm thinking, and what the process is behind. And specifically in this puzzling part, this is where I have set already the main idea, the main theme, some of the details are in, the main sidelines are prepared, that's what we did with the blocking, ensuring that the sidelines are fine. I'm mostly happy with the rides I have defined and so on. And this is the moment where I'll get into bringing the whole area together. So as you can see on screen over here, I decided to have an interaction with the coaster. Now, it is absolutely not necessary to have a bridge crossing over here, because we do have the pathway guiding its way on the harbor, which this harbor part is twice as, or actually is 2 times useful. Or double as useful, or whatever you want to call that, but definitely useful because you first of all create a bit of interest in the shoreline. It's not as flat and super clean as all the other modern ones. It's been a bit more interesting with all the different bumps in there, and a different kind of piers leading out a bit more. So that makes the whole thing more interesting, and at the same time it helps with the guest flow. But it's not interesting. It's not, like, for me personally, it doesn't offer a bit of a sneaky way of going over. It definitely is helpful because of also making sure people with strollers and wheelchairs and so on have a good time and can just move on. But this thing over here is in particular interesting because you will get a very unique spot to look at the pirate swing, which in case your friends, your family, or whatever a member goes onto the swing, you will have the wonderful opportunity to go up here and have a little looky look from a bit of a raised position what the people are doing. And you can also look into the screaming faces of people riding this roller coaster over here, hypercoaster, which finally is receiving a bit of a glow up because but I don't know for how many episodes this one exists in the back of our park, and it always felt a little bit disconnected, but I always had the idea that in this corner over here there will be something special. I usually had the idea that this is going to be our fantasy area. That was the initial thought, but I feel very comfortable with having this pirate cove area here, this Sturtebecker Cove, as part of it, using some of the cool stones here, which this definitely is something fully theme park-ish put in here. It's always, we still have that connection of it being a fully maintained, fully intentional theme park, but yet having a old harbor section that potentially could even offer a realistic place like that. Or it is definitely a place where it used to be, and then the park manager decided to rebuild these buildings. You can decide. I kind of always feel it's a bit more charmful and nice to have the original buildings. Also, that's a good excuse for me being, again, way too big in the buildings. They are not very great when it comes to theme park scaling. They would be really realistic when it comes to real-life scaling, and this is why, in my storyline, these are the real buildings that used to be being here. And they definitely are the ones that already stood here, I don't know, 5 centuries ago, which is exactly what I'm aiming for. Not all of the buildings, and they have been restored, they have been changed, the roofs are different, all fine, but the main building, the main framework, the size of it is exactly what it is. And they used to be being bigger than usual because of the storage required actually in these harbors. And if I understood that correct, and the whole kind of story behind Störtebeker, Klaus Störtebeker or Klaas Störtebeker, it's not like entirely sure how he was really called, and if he even was called like that. One of the most famous pirates from Germany, and he, like, the rumors have it that they actually took over certain parts of the Hamburg harbor area. The Hamburg harbor area, or like the Hamburg port area, has been developing over centuries. It's been an essential part of the beginning international trade. First of all, European trade, but then later on trade with America and so on. Being in the 15th century, 15th, 16th century, when America, South America, and so on became a bigger part, and that's where like Pirates of the Caribbean and so on play. But like Störtebeker was even more early. He's rumored to be he's rumored to be executed. Actually, he didn't die of a natural cause. It's the story told that he has been executed, and that was 1401, which is quite a while ago. So that's what at least the story tells. And so not all of these buildings would have been here. So it's not realistically the area where he really was. But like this wooden building and maybe the crane theoretically could have been here already established, and the rest does our imagination. And I kind of love thinking about these things, and I love this kind of bit of creative freedom I can always take in to make these things. And as you can tell, and I really hope that this will play out later on with the whole area, I took the time to make these whole buildings look really, really clean and nice. I even enabled, or not enabled, but I did put the windows flat with the house. I let them sink in. This is the technique that I learned specifically from Bronation, but I think I learned in the very early days of watching Sylph and so on in Planet Coaster 1. There is this one little issue we have in this game when you have a lot of great windows and you've got all these kind of walls, but you stuck them on top of the wall and they're in front of it, which is not realistic. A window is actually flat within, as you can see what I'm doing on screen right now, within the wall. This is how it normally is. And if you do that in Planet Coaster the way I do it over here, it immediately starts to look so much more realistic once you have it done. And I'm not talking about the realism of this house being realistic. I mean the realism type of believable building, because otherwise you get this kind of googly fantasy looking houses. This fantasy may actually be the only little excuse where you can use it, because many theme parks build these fantasy areas exactly like that, flat walls and stuck some fake windows on top of it. But as long as these windows are not fake, they would be part of the wall, so within the wall frame and not in front of it or on top of it. So this is what I did with almost all the buildings, and that took a lot of time to do, because it's so much more easy with having scaling. That definitely helps tremendously, but it still is a lot of work, because you need to clean off all the edges, specifically when you don't do rectangular but roundish, and as soon as you go into different shapes than roundish or rectangular, it's gonna be even more crazy to do. So in some areas I was a bit lazy and put in some other things and just put some fences and windows on top of it, and then try to hide that with some framing, which is also something you can always do. You can create some frames here and there to just ensure that this looks a little bit as if these windows are sunk in. We'll do something else in the later part of this video where I used a bit of a different trick to create that effect. But the main buildings over here in the front, I wanted to have very clean and nice looking, exactly what I said, to make sure that they also look like a believable building. Specifically, that tower also worked pretty well with thinking these windows in there. And as you can tell over here, I started doing this without, but then I immediately recognized, no, I have to sink them in as well and ensure that this looks as flat and nice and clean as the other one on the left hand side as well. So I did this, but as I said, I didn't do it with all the buildings. I would love to, but the time guys, this project again completely went out of control with being way too long, but also because I wasn't so much in the zone. This building over here was maybe the first one that kind of started becoming a bit more of a flow, I guess, and I actually love doing it. It looks clean and simple and exactly what I wanted it to be, but at the same time, this was also the building where I felt the whole theme over here a lot more nicer. Like, it's always the same. If you start a new theme, you need to just get yourself into that, and once you're in, it all gets a bit quicker. Also, the 1602 is just like a little nod to Anno. It's not like particularly that I want to have that, and the STRB is for Stortebeker, just in case you wanted to know what I was doing over here, which doesn't fit. As I said, Stortebeker was is told to be dead, or actually he died in 1401, so that's 100 years before, 200 years before. But because of the first Anno, which is maybe the first thing that really brought me closer to all this kind of idea of these type of games I'm playing nowadays, Anno has been the first game alongside Roller Coaster Tycoon 1 that I've been playing on my parents' computer, and it's been a hell of a lot of fun. I had no idea what I was doing. All my people starved, but it was great fun, this game. Anno 1602 potentially is the most nostalgic game for me personally. Roller Coaster Tycoon comes very close, but I would even need to rank Transport Tycoon before that when it comes to pure nostalgia, because Transport Tycoon was something I was playing beforehand as well. Now, as I said earlier, this is exactly another building over here, but the style of the building was really offering me to put these windows in front of it. Realistically, this is something that could happen too. When you have a brick building like that, the window frames sometimes stick out to the front. So in this case, it actually looked natural, so I left it the way it is. I also tried to put a pirate kind of flag on top of it, but it's meant to be hanging down, so I decided to take it away again. Just didn't feel it. This is also something I used to be doing quite often. When I build a house, and sometimes like I'm happy with the result, and then I build something else, but the next, and again specifically with a new theme, that happens a lot more often, and you should definitely consider doing the same. The more you get into a theme, the better you get, and the more control you get over this theme, you do start to recognize maybe things you did in the past look not so well anymore. So be brave, change them. Just go in and try yourself if you have a better idea, just as I had over here with the roof. And then I went in and changed this into something way more good looking and way more flat and nice looking, and that just made so much more sense to have the kind of dormer like that. So yeah, that's definitely something I recommend a lot. If you start getting into a theme, you learn new kind of tricks and tips and techniques, and you discover new pieces in the menu. Just go back and see if you can utilize them somewhere else as well. This is what I do all the time, and I was saying, like, the more you get into it, the more confidence you grow, and the more you feel the builds, and then it just naturally comes to you. So don't stop yourself too early. It takes time, and looking at this build over here, trust me, I've been already building over 10 hours in this build to get to this state. I must admit though that this has been one of the more slow builds I did recently, which goes down to the most ridiculous fact ever. I got myself a new mouse pad for my computer corner over here, and I've gotten like an L shape corner desk, I should say. And I had a wonderful mouse pad that the wonderful Corellis actually handed me, like actually not directly, but he gave me kind of a free code to a provider, and I love that one, but its size doesn't really fit that corner anymore. So I got a new one from Amazon, and that one is crap. Honestly, like, I don't know what exactly that is, but my mouse and so on, it just doesn't work so much on it. And I was hoping that it just took a couple days until, I don't know, the first layer is scrubbed away. I have no idea but how that works, to be honest, but it doesn't. And I think I have to revert to my old mousepad first of all, and then get another one. I don't know. But that made me a lot slower in building, because the mouse, I don't know, the mouse doesn't really feel like it. I still have that. It's just like, I don't know. But I'm also, when it comes to my mouse, I just can't change. I've got the same mouse for 15 years or so, and it's my wonderful beloved Logitech MX 518. For me personally, the best ever gaming mouse created, but I'm biased. And I thought lately it got finally, it said goodbye. But I opened it and repaired it, and it just works like a charm again. I cleaned it. You don't want to see how that looks inside of these things then, but I cleaned it, and it's working fine again. I'm the most happy person in the world, and you guys will potentially now go crazy in the comments of what a shitty mouse that is, and that there are like a bajillion new variants and better variants. Yeah, that might be, but I just can't. I do actually have a second, maybe even better mouse somewhere in here, which is a follow-up model of that one. I just, like, during the YouTube days, 2016, 17, 18, I don't know when the whole thing was starting, I was like, yeah, I need to get a new mouse, and just got that myself. But yeah, no, I changed back because I like the old one better. The one day it will come eventually when I can't use that mouse anymore. It's gonna be a very sad day. Anyways, I moved too far away from the build today. You see, we are now starting to make these buildings look better, and the time used until this is done is now a lot less. And this doesn't come from the time lapse. I didn't speed up anything. It's the same speed as before, but I just got into the groove, and that is always the case. This is something I would love to recommend, but I can't even stick to that myself. But obviously, it's the best to keep on building for a longer time period if you can. Sometimes I have the issue that I can only sit down for like an hour at most in the evening, and then a build like that, takes me 2 weeks to finish, because every evening I just have an hour and a half or so. And maybe if I have a free minute, I don't know, noon or so, I just spend 10, 15 minutes to clean up an area or something. That's really not how it's meant to be played. And that always, like, you always have to have these couple first minutes to get back into the groove. And it's really not what I would love to recommend, but I know life happens, and you just not always can decide that you have like now 5 hours of time to build. I would even go that far. If I would have the time, like if I would do YouTube full time, it's not like I need to spend the same time. I would actually gain more time because of more condensed time, if that makes sense to you guys. Like, if I have 8 hours now, I have to spread these 8 hours, let's say, across 7 days. And if I would have 8 hours a day, these 8 hours would worth of being, in comparison, 10 hours now, because of all the time I lose by just getting back into the builds every single day again. But if you can play for 8 hours straight, I would save at least an hour or two in that session because of being so much quicker. And this is what happened already in this build. I think this whole portion you're seeing right now was a 2.5 hours or maybe 3 hour session even. And most of it was like, most of the progress I made was done in the last hour of that. Like, this is what I love this building, by the way, we did just a couple of seconds ago. This is a more typical kind of German style timber wood, as you would call in German. It's Fachwerkhaus, which is very typical German. You get the styles vary a little bit depending on the region you're in, but you'll find them across all the different landscapes in Germany. But also there are more likely like harbor style builds like these across the kind of northern sea as well. So they're very common, and you'll see them in a lot of medieval kind of harbors and so on. And again, anno 1602, if you look at the buildings they used over there, they are primarily looking like that. And I felt like I have to have a house like that looks a little bit like this, because it is just so reminiscent of what I was trying to do here, and I was very happy with the result. Now, buildings aside, we have finished them finally. The puzzle goes on, and that little piece at the beginning, or at the front of it, which is a very important one, is the forefront of our little cove over here. This is where a little kind of crane comes in. Remember, we have already been doing a crane in the old harbor section, but last time around the old harbor section was meant to be like the 20s, like early 20s, late 19th century kind of thing, or maybe 19th century somehow. Like, this was kind of the idea of an old harbor, but this is like an ancient harbor, that's a very old part of the harbor, and so they, location wise, they're also separate from each other. So that's the idea. Gosh, I would love to have the chance to kind of paint that all in, like where the different like eras were in these sections of the harbor. But yeah, I used a piece that I've not really been using too many times, also not in the old games, kind of the standard wooden piece that come with a Was that a fantasy theme? Was that the base theme? I don't even know what exactly that is. But yeah, you can see also that little small house over here. Most of it I skipped I didn't really spend too much time recording that one, the little restaurant house. I was building just like a tiny little house, again, inspired by that little diorama I showed you earlier. And then it was time to put some trees in, because greenery is important. I struggled a bit with that early on, because I tried to do a bit more tropical things in here. I tried to put a couple things in here to maybe give that feeling of Caribbean or so, but nah, I just decided against it. And what I do like is this kind of netting fence piece over here, but as we're not going for this kind of Caribbean style, I needed to kind of somehow hide away these wooden poles with the rope tangled around, which, like, it looks fine though, but it definitely is more of a Caribbean things. Same goes for these docks over here, but I like them so much that I use them as well. And also here kind of these umbrella pieces. I like them a lot, but this goes into the theme park law, so that's fine. We can do that as part of the theme park. I don't mind this too much, having these very pirate style things over here. Same goes for that dude, the animatronic on that kind of little barrel. I feel like this is a nice little touch, a nice little detail, and I will keep on detailing this area. As I said, this is, did I even say that already? It's definitely part one of this area, but I don't know if I will make a dedicated part 2 video, or if I will integrate that into the next overall video, which is taking this coaster part in the background into consideration. More about that in the real-time part. I'll show you. It's gonna be very fun. Also put some statues down here of a parrot, the Parrot as Snow crew. If there's anyone in the comments, anyone watching this video who knows Parrots as Snow, please let me know. This is if so, you are a legend, okay? Parrots as Snow is a legend to Planet Coaster. The whole Planet Coaster family from the early days will know, but not sure how many people watch in here right now. So here comes a bit of decaling. I wanted to make sure that this gets a bit of more old coating, painting. I'll do more of these things, more of these decals. I do hope Frontier is going to give us more, and there's still this problem that the grunge kind of thing is still broken. It's always white-ish, and I have no idea why. So I'm using moss most of the times, because that like white one you can only use on white walls, because it just can't change the base color, which is a bit odd, because the color picker is available, but you just can't change it. So yeah, as I said, this is again just testing if these things work, and put a couple of things here and there. Not too crazy, but I am relatively happy with the outcome. Do a couple of pieces here and there, just making sure it looks good. And now it's time to have a look how it all looks in game, because oh boy, did that took a while, but it's so worth it. So let's move over. Alrighty, we are in the real-time part, and as you can tell, I'm just opening some weird boxes here. Hold on, give me a second. There we go. This is the look into our Pirate Cove, the Stortebeker Cove. I am absolutely stoked. I'm so happy with how that turned out. This is how it looks from above. This is the whole area. You can see there is the pirate ship here in the back. Don't mind this area. It's going to be changed fully, but we are not going to walk over here, because I want to keep that until it's all done. You can see there are still some issues here. People walking through all the clutter. I didn't put the curbs and barriers in yet. I still don't have too much traffic over here, because people, it just takes a while until they're here. So I want to keep that for a better episode, where this is all a bit more nice and so on, and the entrance is fully done. But for the sake of today's episode, this view over here is all that counts. I'm beyond happy. I think this turned out exactly the way I wanted it to. I think this is the only way you can integrate that believably in this entire project. I am willing now to spend a bit more time in the future to make this entire corner over here look like as if this is the old part of the harbor. That doesn't mean we're building more of these buildings, but maybe this is receiving a bit more of an older storage house over here, and a bit of older pavement everywhere. We may have some older ships maybe in here as well. So these are the things I'm still thinking about, that this corner over here, it would also explain why this area over here looks like 2 testicles actually, but don't, I can't unsee this now, oh gosh. But yeah, we're gonna change this then to look a bit more natural. Well, it does look very natural indeed, but like, you know what I mean. I'm sorry, okay? It's late at night. I'm recording late at night. Don't at me. It's the way it is. It's just the way it is, baby. Okay, no, never mind. Stop singing, Rudi. It's time to go to bed. It's time to end the episode, but we're gonna end this with my potentially most favorite view of this project now. This is the Epedemic Cove. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed the slightly different way of explaining what I'm doing. Hopefully that was more like what you asked for. And I can't wait to show you the next one. And the next episode may actually be my little self-test, as I said. I'm going to test the challenge mode to see if the gameplay in this game is actually working, which I don't care about in this project. But yeah, so if you're interested for that, make sure to check out the other videos as well and subscribe to the channel. Also, for those of you who are wondering, and if you guys have been reading the comments lately, you potentially have seen that YouTube does a great job at hiding my videos if you are not subscribed or if you don't activate the bell. I hate to say that. I myself, just a handful of channels I have activated the bell. I know how nasty it is, but just as a little explanation, otherwise you don't land on the front page of YouTube. Despite the fact you're sub to a channel, it doesn't matter why. It's just weird and odd. But hey, I just wanted to let you know in case you can do something. Other than that, you can become a member of the channel as always to, I don't know, support me, I guess, because I'm a bad person when it comes to delivering the member piece. Yeah, whatever. There's not much more to say. Look, people are grabbing a little drink and snack here in our little restaurant. I love it. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did. I said that already earlier, but I did enjoy this episode. Have a good one. I talk to you in the next one. And until then, goodbye.